Goldsmith, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a reusable, foldable grocery bag. It rolls up, it's small, it's easy enough to stick in your purse, and you'll never be frustrated about leaving your reusable bags at home again. Easy as that. It's a super easy project, so let's go have some fun and get started. The necessary materials that you will need to do this project is to print the pattern. It is available for free. It's a PDF file that you can print at home. Just follow the instruction sheet on the first page on how to assemble your pattern, and make sure that you are not overlapping any of your edges and just taping them together so that all your black lines align, and then cut it out along that solid black line. You will also need 0.8 meters of fabric. The best fabrics that I recommend using for this reusable bag project is either ripstop nylon or cotton. Pretty much anything that's durable. You could even upcycle an old sheet to make this project. It just can't be obviously stretchy or flimsy, so it can hold and support groceries. And finally, you will need a 7-inch piece of elastic. This I have is 3/8 7-inch wide. You could use 1/4 inch or even 1/2 inch, whatever you have in your house. And so it's 7 inches long. We're going to lay out our pattern on our fabric now. I have folded my fabric in half with lengthwise edges together so that my selvage edge is matching all the way along. And so that when I cut my pattern out, I will just have to lay it out once and cut it, and I will get 2 pieces, one for the front and one for the back, because my fabric is folded in half. As you can see, I placed the pattern pieces with the handles sort of tucked in between the other handles. So our facing handles fit nicely in between the handles of our front and the back of the bag. That way we can utilize our fabric most efficiently when laying out. I'm going to go ahead now and measure a grain line, and I'll show you how to do this if you've never done it before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a tape measure, and I'm going to put it at the top of my selvage right here, and I'm going to measure down to my grain line. And so I'm going to make this an even 8, and I'm going to pin one side of my grain line right around this first arrowhead. So I'm going to take a pin here and put it into my fabric through both sides. Sometimes it's a little tricky to pin through paper pattern. And now I'm going to measure the other side of my grain line. So I'm going to take my tape measure, and I'm going to measure from my selvage on this side to my grain line and make sure it's 8 as well. And now I can move my pattern piece, and it won't move the other side because I pinned it in place. And I'm going to make sure it's also 8. Now 8 is just my example. Yours might be 9 or 10, but whatever one side of your pattern is, the other side has to be. And so those are always your first 2 pins. So I'm going to pin this in as well. And then I'm going to just start to pin around the whole outside of this piece, because now I know that this grain line is perfectly parallel to that selvage edge. And you're going to do the same to this piece. Now this one is further away from your selvage, so it will not be 8, and nor does it have to be the same. It's only on the same piece. So I'm going to go ahead and measure the same from here to here. And if this side is 14 inches, then I'm going to measure on this side from the selvage down to the grain line and make sure it's also 14. You just want to make sure that your pattern pieces aren't overlapping each other by accident anywhere. So make sure whatever measurement you're choosing, you have free range to cut around the whole entire circumference of your pattern. So go ahead and pin your grain lines and measure them up, and then pin around your pattern piece and cut them out. Now that you have your pattern pieces cut out of your fabric, you want to go ahead and make a marking at this notch. It's just your center point of your curve. It's going to be where we attach our elastic to. You could use tracing paper, tracing wheel. I'm just using a chalk pen here, and you're going to want to do it to the back side as well. So you're going to mark the front and the back of those notches, and you're going to do the same to the one on your facing as well. So you're going to mark just right there. It helps you join your facing a little smoother, and again on your back side. Your next step is going to be to place your front and back bag together, one on top of the other, with good sides touching each other. So you want to be looking at your bad side and your bad side. Okay, so your good sides of your bag are together, and you're going to pin along the 3 long edges. So down your 2 side seams of your bag and across the bottom of your bag as well. Okay, we're going to go and sew. This pattern has a 5/8 seam allowance included. Do not sew around your corners. So we're just going along the straight sides and ending, and then starting again here and going across. You're going to do the same to your facing. So your facing has shorter little sides, but you're going to pin these right sides together as well, down the 2 small sides. And following the 15 line or the 5/8 seam allowance, go ahead and sew these sides. If you are having troubles threading your sewing machine, please watch my other video on how to thread a Janome sewing machine for assistance on how to do so. Today I've actually put in yellow thread into my machine so that it will show up against the nice blue fabric in the video for you to see. You will most likely want to have a matching thread for your project. So you're going to put it in your machine against the 15 line or the 5/8 of an inch guide on your throat plate. That's the standard seam allowance, and that's what's been left on this pattern for you. So I'm going to lower my foot, and I'm going to sew along this seam for you. Now that you've sewn the sides of your bag and along the bottom, like so, we're going to hit the serger. If you don't have a serger at home, you could zigzag stitch the edges of your seams that you just sewed. So you could just put your machine on a zigzag and zigzag close to this edge, because we're dealing with woven fabrics, and over time and wear, they will fray and fray on the inside. So this will add extra strength as well. So you're just going to go and serge or zigzag stitch on the same sides that we're just sewing. Now that your edges have been serged or zigzag stitched, we're going to go ahead and pin our corners together. So we didn't sew on this L, because what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and grab the 2 pieces apart like this, and we're going to kind of pull them apart and line up our seams there. So you're going to line up your seams and pin it. So I would make one seam allowance go one way, one go the other way, and pin it just across this sort of short edge. This will give your bag dimension. So I've pinned across my one corner. I'm going to flip my bag around, and I'm going to pull apart my other corner and do the same to this side. So pulling it away from each other, lining up your seams with one seam allowance facing one direction and one going the other direction, and pinning that in place as well. Go ahead and sew this across here at 5/8 and serge or zigzag stitch those corners as well. Our corners are now sewn and they're serged on both sides. And while I was at the serger, I serged around the bottom circle of my facing. So again, you can go ahead and zigzag stitch all the way along. I'm not sewing anything together. I'm just finishing off that lower edge so that it's easier to do now than when the 2 pieces have been attached together. We're going to flip our bag right side out now because we're going to attach our elastic that helps hold our foldable bag rolled up. We made a marking at the top middle curve of our bag here. And so right in the middle is where we're going to pin our 7-inch piece of elastic. So I have my 7-inch piece of elastic. I'm going to just fold it in half so that my cut edges of my elastic match right there. And then again, my right side of my bag is now face up, and I'm going to pin my elastic to one side right over top of my marking so that the raw cut edges all line up. Now our seam allowance is the 5/8 seam allowance, so I would like you to go and sew this along just the 10 line. And so all you're going to do is sort of backstitch, go across, backstitch. You could go back and forth once along the 10 line. Therefore, when we attach the facing piece all the way around the 15 line, you'll never see that stitch. It'll be inside. And it also double stitches your elastic because we tend to pull on this when we roll up our bag. So I have my elastic edge right along the 10 line. I'm going to go forwards, backwards, kind of forwards in the same line. So all the way across, all the way back, and then all the way forward again, just to reinforce that pulled on elastic. Now that we've secured our elastic to our bag, we are going to attach our facing piece. So notice I have the good side of my bag turned out and my facing is still inside out. That's what you want, because now I'm going to take my facing and put it over top of my bag and sort of tuck my whole bag into my facing, so my facing kind of comes up and over. Okay, so we have a marking that we made on our facing as well, our yellow chalk line. I'm going to line up my middles just like that and put a pin in there. I'm going to put a pin on either side of that elastic just so it's a little easier to pin through. And then I'm going to line up my seams because all my seams should match as well. Again, it's always good to keep one seam allowance facing one way and the other seam allowance facing the other way for bulk reduction, and then match those seams up and put a pin. And then you're going to go and do that to the other side seam and match that side seam and to the other middle. Once you have lined up your middles and lined up your side seams, I would like you to go and put a pin at the top of your straps together. So line up the tops of your straps on both sides, and then using a seam gauge or tape measure, I'd like you to mark 3.5 inches down and put a chalk line, and do the same to the other side. You're going to flip your bag over and repeat it for the other curve as well. So pinning your tops together, measuring down 3.5 inches and giving yourself a chalk line. After marking 3.5 inches down, I put double pins there so that it reminds me to actually stop sewing. Because when we go and assemble our facing onto our bag, we are actually going to start at the double pins here and go around the curve and stop at the double pins there. And we're going to do that on both the middle curves. The outside curves on the side of our bag that go around where the side seam are, we're going to actually sew all the way from the top, all the way around the side and back up your other strap to the top. Okay, and as you can see on the other side of my bag, when I flip it over, I've marked it with double pins again where my 3.5 inches was, and I've marked the double pins on the other side. So two sides, we're going to sew sort of short U's, not all the way up to the straps. And the other two sides with the side seam, we're going to sew all the way around from the top of the strap all the way to the other top of the strap. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this, and this is following 5/8 on your sewing machine. So you should now have your facing sewed around all the curves, again leaving 3.5 inches open, not sewn, on your inside curved edge on both sides. The outside curved edge where your seam is goes all the way from the top of the strap all the way up to the top of the strap. And your elastic was still wiggled in between the two layers and not poking out. So we're going to go and clip our concave curves. So clipping your curve means making little slits through your seam allowance up to, but not through your fabric, about every 1/2 inch, so it allows the curve to sit nicer when we flip our facing to the inside. So a tip to remember when we're clipping curves is not to put your shears past your stitching line like this. Just put your tips up to, but not through your stitching, and give it a clip. Okay, every 1/2 inch gets one of these clips. And again, we're not removing fabric, but we're just releasing sort of the strain on that curve so that your seam will lay smoothly once the facing is flipped. You don't have to go all the way. As soon as your curve straightens out, so I would go to about there, you can stop clipping and go again to about there on the other side. You're going to do that to the curve where your seam is and to the other curve. So you have 4 curves that you need to go and clip. So all of our curved edges are now clipped. So go ahead and pull the straps right side out. So you kind of reach in and pull on those straps and turn them right side out. And the facing will be turned to the inside of your bag now, because we're going to join our straps. So there's my top of my strap. You're going to go ahead and turn it on all 4 straps to the right side, and then give your curved edges that we just clipped a nice press so that your facing sits tucked in to the inside of your bag, like so. Now that we've pressed our edges all the way around our curves, our facing sits nicely to the inside and our straps have a nice smooth shape to them. We're going to take our straps, the 2 straps that are right facing it on top of you, and open the top edge up, because we only sewed partially up the inside curve. And you're going to go ahead and do that to this strap as well. So now that you have them sort of open, all you're going to do is touch your edges so that right sides go together always. And you're going to line up the top corners here and pin all the way across this short edge, making sure that the seam up here lines up and matches on both sides. Now that you've put pins across our top of our strap, before going to sew it, just do a little test to make sure that you have not twisted your strap. And so I have not twisted it, but it's always a good idea just to double check before sewing. So now that it's not twisted, go ahead and just sew across that top edge at 5/8. You're going to go ahead and repeat that step with the other side of your strap so that you will have 2 straps sewn together like so. You do have an opening right here, so all you're going to do is clip your threads, of course, but you're going to turn under 5/8 of an inch to the inside using your iron. So you don't need to sew that right now. So you're going to sort of turn under your seam allowance that is 1.5 centimeters, lining up those seams, and just press it so that that top of the edge of your strap is nice and smooth, and pin it across there. Because we're going to go all the way around all our curves again with a top stitch following 1/4 inch or 2/8. So I would make sure that this lines up nice and smoothly, and the same on this side, so that when you sew it, there's not going to be a pucker. So just butting up those 2 folds, and then we are going to start at the top of our strap and go all the way around the circle and top stitch it so that no one will know there was an opening right there. Once you have your opening pinned up, you're going to put it in your machine, and following the 2/8 guide or the inside paddle of your clear embroidery foot, again, it's between the 1/8 and the 3/8. It's this little tick called 2/8. That's what we're going to follow, and we're going to top stitch all the way around each one of our circles of our straps. Congratulations, you are now done your bag. You've top stitched around all your top edges. It keeps your facing tucked in. It keeps your straps having a nice shape. I top stitched mine in white so you could see it in this video. I'm now going to show you how you fold up your bag. So you're going to put it flat down with your straps sort of aligned and your elastic sticking out. And all you're going to do is you're going to fold in 1/3 to the middle like this. You're going to take your other and fold it in 1/3 like that. You're going to take your straps and fold them down. Then the bottom of your bag and fold it up so everything's sort of tucked in. And then from the bottom, you're just going to roll it up nice and snug like a sleeping bag. And then at the top you have your elastic sticking out. And so all you're going to do is push your elastic up and over. And ta-da! You have your reusable grocery bag that's nice and neat, small enough to go in that purse so you don't forget it the next time you're out. Thank you very much for watching my tutorial. I hope you enjoy it. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more easy sewing projects to do at home.